Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah. So I was asked to provide a little bit of dalil for my statement as far as if a brother and a sister has similar habits, right? Similar lifestyles. And I said that I would marry them. And the Quran says this and says that. And they didn't agree, which is fine, alhamdulillah. So they just asked me to provide a little bit of dalil. But, and I'm going to use the Quran, of course, but when you just bring it down to a simplistic level, just because some Muslims who they really, I'm going to say they feel they serious about the deen, because the deen is levels, right? And sometimes we have to look back at how we first started off. But just because they live particular lifestyles, do that mean they not worthy of being married? You know? And sometimes just due to education and our surroundings, some people just don't know what to do, you know. And you have some people who they won't marry particular type of people, and they say things like, well, not on my watch. I'm not going to be responsible if this brother turns out to be this way and be that way. But what if it be the exact opposite? What if they would have turned each other around and led each other to Jannah, but then you chose not to marry him? You know, you don't necessarily know. Like sometimes, like I say, man, trying to micromanage. And I'm not saying just marry anybody to anybody, but when you sit down, because when you sit down and get to know both people on a personal level, then you can see who's a good fit for who and who isn't. Because you really have to know them. Some of them don't. Some wakils be more focused on getting in the brother business, that they don't even know nothing about the sister at all. They don't even know if her Islam is good. And then when a brother asks the sister's particular questions, the wakils, they can't answer it. Or it ain't about that. Or like I say, some wakils just won't. Some walis and wakils just won't say nothing. Like, you know, don't even waste your time, brother. I'm not finna waste your time or mine. You know, and that's why I be saying, you know, for some sisters, man, you gonna have to ask yourself why they trying to put particular brothers with you. Like, what do they think of your Islam? And it don't mean that you're a bad person. It just means sometimes the type of person you pursuing, it just ain't gonna work out. So, but you just have to think about that. Are they not worthy of being married? Just because they have some sins. You know, where in Islam do it say because you this way and you this way that you can't be married? So anyway, we're gonna look at the Quran ayahs, right? Because I got to be brief, man. I got some things going on. So, inshallah, bithni Allah ta'ala. So, when you go to surah number 24, the light, right? An-Nur. Even when you come to ayat number 3, right? I'm going to read ayat number 1 because it says, right? This surah, which has been revealed and made its rulings obligatory and revealed in a clear commandment so that you may be mindful. So some law finna be laid down. Some obligatory rulings is laid down in this surah, right? So just in ayah number 3, where it says a male fornicator, an adulterer, will only marry a female fornicator or an adulteress, right? An idolatress, a mushrik. somebody with, believe in idols, or they up on some form of shirk. Like they may just believe Jesus is God and they don't think that's idol worship, but it's still an idol. Right? So only the type of brother that's like that will marry that type of sister. They for each other. You see what I'm saying? And when you look at some of the tafsirs, it's saying where for an idolatrous, a mushrik, right? A person of shirk, some forms that could put them in a category, or the male or the female, because they don't believe what they doing is illegal. They don't believe us being together, doing boyfriend and girlfriend and being like this, we don't believe it go against Islam. Now, some people who fall into it, and due to the circumstances, because sometimes it be circumstances where people trying to get married and they jumping through loopholes and settling differences and all that. These is different circumstances, and they may fall into some things. But some people choosing it and they don't care, right? So if they don't even believe what they doing is wrong, we could just do, because fornicating is the sex without marriage. The adultery is having sex while you married with somebody that isn't your spouse, right? So they two different things. So some people feel like they could do the boyfriend girlfriend thing and it don't go against Islam, right? And these type of individuals is for those type of individuals, right? So this is, when you look at this, you could see like certain people, they're just for certain people. If you got the ones who want to gang bang and want to stay in the street, but they go to the masjid, they might go to Jumu'ah, they might pray 5 times. They just have some habits that they can't leave alone. They may have been drinking and smoking marijuana since the age of 14, 15, not making an excuse for them, but now they 36 and they've been smoking and drinking all of this time. And they took their shahada at the age of 32, age of 30. And these are just habits that they haven't outgrown yet. That don't mean it won't never happen. That don't mean that they are a bad person. They just have some habits. Do that mean that they're not worthy of marriage? If it's a brother like that, there's particular sisters who isn't going to marry them. And if it's a sister like that, there's particular brothers who isn't going to marry them because of their habits. And that's totally understandable. But then it's some, it doesn't matter to them. They may do the same thing, or they may have some compassion and want to give them some time to break those habits. Because outside of their habits, they might be some good people. Their relationship might be suitable. And some people have types. Just like, for instance, me, I realize I have a type. You got to have a little bit of an edge from about yourself. A little bit of that street edge. You have to have it. Not saying the habits and the things that come along with it, but some people just work better with females from a particular element, to where y'all can have a friendship and a relationship. Some sisters, man, who cut from that and they be with particular brothers who isn't, they see them as boring. But it's not because they a goody two-shoes. They just be boring. Just like some brothers be with some sisters that's maybe considered, I hate using the word goody two-shoes, but they don't come from that same element, and they be boring. Like, y'all don't have anything connect on. Y'all can't have particular conversations. Y'all don't have any fun together. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all just don't have a lot in common, no similarities. But y'all marriage may be able to work as far as acquiring dunya and getting along in the house, right? So some people just have types, man. Everybody isn't for everybody, and I'm only mentioning this because some people will set their own personal standards on people who can't reach them because they may be a student of knowledge, they may be a graduate, and sometimes they forget where they came from. So sometimes they put, let's say they've studied for 16 years in Mecca or Medina, right? And they really live in it. But then it's a couple that come to them and they only been Muslim 3 years, 2 years. They put the standards of an individual who's studied Islam for 16 years in a prestigious Islamic university where they've learned the deen and their science from A to Z. They'll put the same standard on them. They only been Muslim a couple of years. They've been Muslim 2-3 years. And then they'll look at them and say, no, y'all can't be married. Brother, you no good for her. Like the brother might be honest and say, you know what, during the playoffs or the Super Bowls, little boxing, I might get with the guys, I might have me a beer or two. I might take a few shots. You know, but that's really to the extent of it. Oh, no. But like I said, not knowing, the sister do the same thing because they don't really be knowing them. So like, even like the brother said in my comments, sometimes people be expecting like Muslims to be perfect, and it's just not gonna go that way. You see what I'm saying? But sometimes you can put some of these people together because I've seen it. I done seen some Muslims, you know, and not to speak on other people, just like myself. A lot of these snares I fell into because I became Muslim at 13 years old. So even being younger, over 20 some years ago, where I let some people tell me with somebody who I already been with for 3 years, they took their shahada like 2 years in. But after 3 years, I didn't even want to be married. You got to get married. You got to go to the courthouse. And at the time, I'm like, okay, let me call the masjid somewhere. Masjid, no, we don't do this and do that. So then I let somebody else who didn't really know nothing and didn't really understand the deen tell us to go to the courthouse. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we did. No witnesses. Nothing that Islam say should be there was there. My pop showed up in the courthouse, and they did the in the name of Jesus and all this and that. Even though it was a judge, they had a Bible. You know what I'm saying? A female judge and all this and that. But I fell into that, and the whole time we was together under that act. And then when it was time, when we decided to go our separate ways, I didn't even really know how to move forward. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even really know how to move forward because we got these papers between us, and we in a whole nother city than opposite of where we got married at. So I understand, and I was duped into making the same mistake. Anything that's laid down from the Quran on certain things of how a nikah should go, none of that was in place. But because it's the courthouse, that means it's legal in Islam. Now I understand the scholars who say if they got married that way before they accepted Islam, they don't have to remarry, because according to the religion they chose before, they got to marry in accordance with Christianity. But if you go look at marriage in accordance to Christianity, did they really? So, but like I say, I understand some who make that type of ruling, and I understand the ones who don't agree with it. So I fell into these same things. I was a person, even at that time, I'm a Muslim, I'm young, alhamdulillah, I got a girlfriend. Okay? We live together. I drink alcohol. You know what I'm saying? So I know what it's like, and I know other people that was in my same shoes that changed. I know some people who was drinked and smoked and hustled in the streets, girlfriends and everything, and now they some of your top students of knowledge right now. Some people can change. And you know, sometimes earlier on, they was introduced to a sister that has similar ways, and them saying they still together today. 16, 17, 20-year marriages. So some people can change, but some of these individuals who knew they was like that early on in their deen, they might have a couple in front of them who may already be dealing with each other, and then they'll refuse to marry them. Y'all not a good fit. Y'all not this, you not that. But you came from that same thing. And that's why I have a different compassion for it, because, and you have to be open with them, because the sister might be willing to tolerate him smoking or him drinking a little bit. He might not smoke or drink, and he might be willing to tolerate her smoking or drinking. Or he might be willing to tolerate her wearing weave, her not covering up. Whatever she got going on, whatever deficiencies in deen and in life, the brother might be okay with it. So you really have to sit down and look at certain things, and just because you're not okay with it, and because it's something that you don't choose for yourself, you can't make that choice for them. Because you don't know what Allah Azza wa Jal will put in between the heart of those two people and may possibly change them. You understand? So like, even in the same surah, when you come to ayah number 26, where it says, wicked women, bad women are for wicked men. Bad wicked women are for bad wicked men. And wicked men, wicked bad men, are for wicked bad women. The street Muslim that got the Muslim woman who's attracted to him, and they're attracted to each other, they for each other. And then it says that, and the virtuous men are for the virtuous women, and the virtuous women are for the virtuous men. So like I say, if you got a strong student of knowledge, or they not a student of knowledge but they're a Muslim and they take the deen really serious and there's no nonsense, everybody gonna have some sin though. Everybody is gonna fall into something. It's just about what you do when you make that sin and what's your intentions. Like, let's say, like I always use an example. You at home, you have children, and you have a spouse. They may be starving. Y'all haven't had a good meal in 2-3 days, and there's nobody to turn to. They might go to a grocery store and steal some chicken. They might go steal something to create a meal for their family. Not saying that it's right, but committing a sin under those circumstances is understandable. And I mention that because sometimes when a person is a thief, sometimes they get to the bottom of why did they steal before they implement Sharia laws on them. So sometimes it's why are you doing the sin? You see what I'm saying? It's why did you do it? And sometimes things is understandable because sometimes people reach their breaking point. This isn't something that I did for pleasure, although them eating and this and that, some pleasure do come up out of it. So you have to look at all of it in totality, and you really have to look at particular peoples and their circumstances and see they already got their mind made up. They want to be together. You can't say, oh no, well I'm not going to be the one to do it because what if you become this? What if you become that? That's not going to be on me. But what if they become the best Muslim couple known to man and they make it to Jannah? What if that happens? You don't know. And like it says, you can't take a virtuous woman and then put her with the bad brother, hoping she can change him, and then you can't take the virtuous brother and put him with the bad sister. Now, like I said, some might need a sister that's a little rough around the edges. You know what I'm saying? That possibly done drag themselves through the dirt a little bit. You may need that, because like I said, with some people base the element like there may be some differences. Like I said, the street girl, you got the street girl, and then you got the school girl. But because she's a street girl, she's automatically viewed as worse than the school girl. But the street girl, okay, she's been in a relationship with the shooter, she's been in a relationship with the drug dealer, and she's been in a relationship with the gangbanger. But then the schoolgirl has been with the quarterback, the point guard, and the pitcher of the baseball team. The street girl may have messed with a couple of the guys who sold drugs together. The schoolgirl may have messed with a couple of people that played on the same football team together. It's just the way that it look. So some people, you might get with the schoolgirl and she may have slept with the whole entire basketball team. So you got to look at it for like what's really happening and keep it in reality. Because like I say, some people, some Muslims, although they this and that, the schoolgirl might not just be their flow. The little chick that's a little rough around the edges, that can catch on, because you may still be in those elements. You may need somebody who know how to pay attention and who know how to move around and who know when to talk and when not to talk and know how to act and how not to act. So you might see a brother who willing to say, okay, yeah, she a little rough around the edges, but that's cool. I can deal with that. I can work with that. You see what I'm saying? You can't just be like, oh no, she too rough around her edges for the brother. Now if the brother make it clear, nah, no weave, no makeup, all this type of this and all that, and he make it clear, and that those is his standards, then that's a different scenario. But you can at least talk to him and say, look, this, and this. She only been Muslim this long. She been around the wrong type of Muslims. Islamically, she's been groomed wrong. You might possibly be able to work it out and let him make the decision. But like, if you don't know that, then you just automatically, like I said, some brothers need that. And that's why I understand some sisters, they can't do the clean cut guy. They need a brother with that's a little rough around the edges, man. Because everybody not going to be perfect, man. And like I said, the bad and wicked women is going to be for the bad and wicked men. And then the virtuous ones are for the virtuous ones. This is Allah Azza wa Jal laying this down in Quran al-Kareem. So sometimes you have to use the discernment. And like I said, I'm not going to refer to anybody as bad or anybody that's good. But I will say that Muslim man who don't want to leave the streets on whatever level, then he has the Muslim woman who don't know how to leave the street element guys alone. Why wouldn't you marry them? The Quran say they for each other. You see what I'm saying? Not saying it's impossible for them to get with their counterparts and it be a beautiful situation, but like I said, sometimes that them having those similarities in lifestyle and point of views of how they see the world, sometimes those things make relationships better, you know. And then sometimes people need a polar opposite, because sometimes people don't know how to leave that element and they need somebody that's completely different. And then sometimes they need somebody who understands it because they come from that world and they grew out of it. and they can help them transition out of it as well. So, you just have to use a lot of discernment, man, because some people don't understand, man, that they playing with people's lives. You see what I'm saying? And they basing these circumstances on who can be together and who can't be together off standards that they came up with. And then you leave these people out here, and then when they start fornicating, and then they end up in different situations, like no intentions on getting married at all. They just out here. And like sometimes with Muslims and with me, and I have a gentleness, man, and I look at things because I know what I came from, and I know what I see on a daily basis, and I've done seen bad Muslims go good, and I done seen good Muslims go bad, to where their Islam is extremely questionable, But you have to have some type of compassion, man, and just look at the circumstances and really get to know what the people on, because when you set these standards up that you're going to base the life-changing decision on them and put them together, you got to take a lot into consideration, man. You know what I'm saying? We not Allah. And it might be some people that should be together and you say no. And then there might be some people who shouldn't be together and then you say yes. And like you have some people, like you have some sisters who have been through different relationships. But all of it was for the purposes of being in a relationship and trying to be married. Then you have some people who just sleeping around. Like, okay, she been with 15 men, but she just was in 15 relationships trying to make it work. It wasn't like she was just running around sleeping with 15 men. Just like the same way with the brother. He may have been with 15 women, but it was for the purposes of trying to have some type of relationship and marriage. We even talking about in the dunya and in the deen. And then some men, they just sleeping with anybody that won't say no. But you can't put them in the same category. Because this sister isn't like this sister's. She just got these numbers because the relationships didn't work. He got these numbers because the relationship didn't work. They just not out here running around, sleeping around, man. So you have to know how to look at all of that, pay attention to it, and you can't put a standard on them like a person who studied Islam on an academic level for 16, 12, 8, 20 years. You see what I'm saying? It's a whole lot they need to know and they need to learn. But like it say right there in the Quran, man, certain type of women is just for certain type of men, man. And certain type of men, they just for certain type of women. And then some who on another level, they not for them. But where they start off, it doesn't mean that's where they end. Because what do the deen teach us? Some people will do the deeds of the people of the hellfire until they get an arm's length to Jannah. And then they change and do the deeds of the people of Jannah. Some people live a life like the people of Jannah. And then when they get an arm's length to the hereafter, they start to do the deeds of the people of the hellfire. So people just need to, sometimes, man, you just need to politely get on out the way. And then some of these sisters also need to understand this when you was considered to be a matron, an older lady who has been married, especially if you've been, but because we come from a particular society, you may have a numerous amount of men that you've been with, right? You may have all type of kids and children and this and that, and you do have a wakil or a wali. They can choose or not. If they say, we don't want you marrying this brother, you could still say, no, I want to marry him. You just in place to do to make sure this thing is official. That's when it comes to the hadith about it's still her choice. She can choose. Now, yeah, you can advise her and say he not a good brother because of this and this. He may drink, he may smoke. We looked into him, he's abusive. But if you sit down and say, oh, well, you know, the brother drinks sometime. I know somebody who's seen him at the bar. She can sit down and say, hey, I drink sometime too. I still want to marry him. But see, some sisters who of age, who's married, they don't know those particular rights. And I hate putting it out there because I don't want nobody to try to abuse it. And some people don't teach these sisters or let them know particular things, either one, because they don't know they self. They just somebody in position by default, or they want to micromanage and don't want these sisters to know particular things so that they can micromanage their affairs. And not knowing sometimes you making the situation worse. Not to mention when you come from a hyper sexualized society, just imagine how much masturbation and different things these people is falling into when they could have been married. You see what I'm saying? When they could have been married. You understand? Like I say, every situation isn't a one size fit all. But that's the deal. Whether other people try to use it a certain way, but life experience, knowing what I came from, knowing how I was while people were still married to me. But it wasn't like, let me hide this and what I got going on. No, they knew. Sometimes they did the same stuff with me. And we was cool. But so, as life goes on, man, sometimes people just outgrow certain things, or they understand, they start to really learn their deen and be like, oh, okay, what I am doing is wrong. But I don't know it's wrong because all the Muslims around me do it. Just like I say, some of the things that I was into, you know what I'm saying? Like when I was drinking and when I was smoking, I was doing it with other Muslims. You know what I'm saying? Who had all these justifications and things, just like I said, man, even this going to the courthouse and doing all this other stuff, listening to people who didn't know what they was talking about, man. But I was a shorty. I had to grow up. So because some people are the way that they are today, that don't mean that's how they're going to be tomorrow. You don't know what Allah is going to put in between them when you put them together. They might get together now and they might become each other's support system. We need to start getting serious about our deen. We need to start, we need to start reading. We need to start going to Jumu'ah. And then they might start changing each other, because I've seen that, man. And then, like I say, as long as people honest up front, and then they choose to be with that, because like I know brothers who seen sisters, know the sister don't cover, know the sister may have these different habits and all this type of stuff, and then in their head they're gonna force her or somehow have some game so cold that they're gonna change them. But she may have been married 3-4 times and not now brother changed that. But they think they're gonna be the one, but then they don't do enough in the deen where they heart gonna be changed, and these brothers is suffering being with them. So that's just sometimes the price that you had to pay. You know what I'm saying? Like, because every marriage isn't gonna be perfect, man. But you knew that going into it. That you didn't set that standard. No, I ain't finna marry no sister. Wait, you been Muslim 10 years, 15 years, and you still don't cover? Like, have you ever covered every single day for a whole month straight? What these other Muslims was doing, what them other Muslims said, I ain't had to do it. Or that some of that old war of deen stuff. As long as I'm married and I'm with my husband, I don't have to cover up. The only time we had to cover up, we just had to put something over our head when we go in the masjid. I ain't going to the masjid, so I don't have to be covered. That's Arab stuff. They may have had that type of understanding, but you need to know that. You can't just automatically say, I'm going to change her, I'm going to fix her, and now you end up, you miserable. You know what I'm saying? Trying to jump slick. And now it's biting you in the butt. Those is different circumstances, man. Those different circumstances. This is a pattern. This is how she is, man. Y'all didn't have those conversations about, look, if we do get married, will you at least start the cover? Can you think about it? No, you just automatically said, yeah, I'm going to be a cold individual and I'm going to fix all this. When it's something she don't want fixed. And then your Islam ain't the same. So it just, like I said, man, I ain't going to keep going on and on. You just got to be careful, man. But me, if people is similar and they the same type of way, I'm not going to put a tag on them and say they bad people or say that they wicked. But if y'all live the same lifestyle and y'all already talking and dealing with each other already anyway, let's do it. Let's do it, man. But I'm going to advise them. I'm going to tell them to fear Allah. But I'm not going to send them separate ways where they just going to keep on dealing with each other or start dealing with other people that's worse and non-Muslims. Nah, I ain't going to do that. But I'm not going to fault other people that do. But we can see the end result of how the marriage system has broken down very bad in Islam. There's no way, just like I said, and I'm going to end on this. We in a masjid, like I said, 25 brothers, literally, because they had them on count, not married. 40 sisters, not married, and they attend the same masjid. These 25 brothers, right? 20 of them, or not necessarily 20 of them, but some of them could have took 2 sisters apiece. And then whatever, you know what I'm saying? And then a couple of people could have had 1 sister. It was enough brothers and doing enough where they could have, all 40 of them sisters could have been married. Some of them just would have had the same husband. But some of them, you know, and it's crazy because we out of towners, and hey man, you know, some sisters, this and that. Come on, man, there's brothers right here. Like, what are y'all doing? What y'all got going on, man? Man, those sisters talking about they want a Range Rover dowry and all this unrealistic stuff. What you telling me about them for? Do I look like I'm a Range Rover dowry type of guy? like, come on, man. But sometimes people just gonna have to be realistic. And I'm not saying Muslims need to just marry anything or the first thing that comes their way. Nah, you gonna mess around and have 50 million marriages in 3 years. You know what I'm saying? But that's better than not being married and dealing with the same amount of people for 3 years. You just gonna have to use some discretion. So anyway, man, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.